Okay, give me just oh, magically it's recording. I was just going to say, give me a moment to do some housekeeping, but we are good to go. So welcome everyone. My name is Lynn Matthews. I am very excited to be coming to you from Arizona, where I live. I have been working with this remarkable discovery for a little over 7 years now, and I can't tell you how happy I am that you are on here and what you're going to learn tonight. There's a lot of facets to this, and it's our intention to touch on as many of those facets as we can in the time that we have together. So what I have found in the 7 years that I have been working with this, people look at this for a number of different reasons. You know, many of you may be on here because you have a health challenge and you're trying to find out if this is a possible solution. You know, maybe this is that missing link that you've been searching for, or maybe you're here because a loved one or a friend, a family member has a challenge and you're looking, you know, here because of them. Some of you might be on because you don't want things to have labels and diagnoses, and you like to be proactive with your health, and you're here to find out more from that perspective. And still others look at this because of the athletic benefits, you know, whether you're a high-end athlete, you know, elite athlete, or someone like me that just likes to stay in shape, likes to bike and hike, things like that. Perhaps you've heard what this does for athletics and you want to find out more about that. And then some people are here because they may have heard about some of the anti-aging benefits that this discovery has for our skin, for our minds, really for everything. And that might be the reason that you are here joining us tonight. And still others are seeking something that will allow them to have a bigger purpose in life, to maybe touch a lot more lives, make a difference in the world. And so they're looking at perhaps what it's like to link arms with the people doing this and start to educate and bring this to the world. So whatever your reason or reasons for being here tonight, I would suggest that you take what you were meant to hear and leave the rest. You know, if you're not here to learn about the athletic benefits, just don't leave here thinking about that,
And we share
right?
the webinar
I believe
started.
that there are no mistakes. We are all here tonight for a reason. We are meant to hear what we're going to hear tonight. And so just take what you were meant to hear. So I am so excited that I get to do these every Tuesday with one of my dear friends, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. Dr. Hoffman is a traditional naturopath. She is also on the medical professional board for this company. And I have to say, she is probably one of the most eloquent speakers on this. She just has a way of making this come alive and making it so that everyone can understand what this is and why it is so profound. So without further ado, Carolyn, I am going to turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm going to share my screen. We may just want to check. I think we have a few random unmutes there, or mutes that we might need to do to make sure that we don't interrupt and spoil our recording for everybody. But let me go ahead and share my screen so that I can show you information that I think makes sense as we talk, because I do believe that many of us actually absorb information much better when they see it as well as when they hear it. And certainly I'm one of those people, but if you miss something that I say, you may actually gather something that you see. And so we do also have closed caption on there, so if those of you who are a little befuddled by my English accent that is still pretty persistent, despite the fact I've been here for 30 years, hopefully that might make some sense out of things that seem a little odd to you. So I want to talk about what is my favorite topic over the last 4 years. I certainly didn't step into this field 4 years ago thinking that this was where I would be, educating people around the world on the benefits of what we have here in this groundbreaking technology. But my toe step into the possibility of simply another product that may benefit my clients became something much bigger as I watched the impact of this change lives. And it became really obvious to me that I had my hands on something unusual. It's really like being a fisherman and catching that enormous fish, you know, the one big thing that you've always hoped that you could get hold of, and you have something on the end of your rope there or your line and you realize it's amazing. And that was certainly what I came to realize when I looked at unique responses that I was seeing with this technology that I certainly had not been able to achieve with any single nutritional supplement. And that was really my background of 20 odd years in that field. accumulating lots of other technologies and approaches to health, because everything is just a mystery in how we get to the root of the challenge that we're all going through. But I would want to encourage you tonight to realize that even if you've never heard of redox signaling molecules, which is the key breakthrough, not only in terms of science in health field, but in also the stabilization of something that enables us to become very much an owner of our own health in our own home, don't think that this is something peculiar and unusual just because you haven't heard of it. I will tell you that most doctors have not heard of this development themselves, and I've worked with quite a few over the last few weeks who say, I've never heard of this, and yet they've been, in high-level areas of medical professional work. So what is it? It's definitely what I felt was the missing link as I started to delve into the science of redox signaling. And what you're looking at there is the Verticel Norton Center for Redox Life Science, which is looking at this particular product technology, and its development is going to really be adding to the body of science around the world as we move forward. And why and what is this? Well, it started with these three gentlemen back in the late 90s who were awarded a joint Nobel Prize for discovering the very first redox signaling molecule. That spurred the next 22 years of research, which pulls together people from all over the world who are looking at the importance of these signaling molecules and how we stay alive as a result of them. You can see here, for example, about 1,400 published books on redox biochemistry, which really kind of speaks to the breadth of what's going on. If you're a real science buff and you love to look at research papers, then go take a look at the NIH website. And the peer-reviewed studies in any kind of field will get published here. These numbers change on a weekly basis and grow on a rapid rate because it just represents the amount of interest in what these molecules do. But not everything ends up in the peer-reviewed realm. It just isn't possible, and there's a lot of influence behind where the money is being spent as to what actually gets on peer-reviewed publications. So the bulk of the rest of the research you'll find in grade papers under Google Scholar. Don't look at Google. That is just that's a search engine, not a research engine. If you're looking for real science, this is where you would go, and you would see that they're in the millions, which kind of speaks to the volume of interest in this field. Very much is heading, the field of where health science is going as a whole, but that obviously is much more directed towards drugs. Current research, however, is showing us, for interestingly enough, and I put this one in here just last week when I was doing this, because I've been on a lot of training sessions over the last month, and people are actually beginning to talk about redox disturbances in different fields, and that always catches my attention. And so we talk about the fact that, when we get estrogen deficiencies as women, we're beginning to see a redox disturbance in the brain. Could be accounting for a lot of the challenges that people experience as that alters throughout their life. Mitochondrial redox deficiencies are related to the current health crisis that's going on. But here, if you're interested in who's doing research, is just a very minor scratch on the surface of US universities and facilities around the country that have either single research facilities going on or complete departments that are now dedicated to redox biochemistry and its importance. But in fact, this is really just very representative of what's happening worldwide, because we have 22 years of annual world conferences in Paris, France. So what is redox? Let's talk about what it is and what would it mean for you and for me. How is that going to impact our health? Well, it is the energy that actually powers everything. So if we don't have redox functioning in our body, there is no energy for a cell to function. And a bit like the car, the electrical system dies in the car doesn't go anywhere. That's really what's happening to us. And it starts in every single cell, these little things called mitochondria, and they're anything between like 200 to 5,000 in every single cell. They are churning out the energy for the life of the body. That is the ATP, the metabolism. That's burning up those foods that we consume, creating sugar and oxygen and fueling us. But there's also this other really key thing called redox signaling, and that is these positive and negative charges that are spun off in that ATP cycle. Fancy word for the fact that the body is smart enough to take the components of the cell, which is saline, the sodium, chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen, and play this little game of Chinese fire drill. everything gets broken apart, runs around and reconforms itself in 20 signaling messengers. And so that's like the UPS system for the body. It's going to make things move back and forth and back and forth. It's going to deliver and return information which coordinates how every cell functions. In other words, how we stay alive. Well, redox signaling molecules affect every single major system in the body because they are in every single cell. And if we have 70 to 100 trillion cells combining themselves in different ways to make all of these organ systems, obviously if those cells individually are healthy, then those systems are healthy. So if you've come today because you actually have a challenge in one of those systems, maybe you don't breathe so well, so you have damaged respiratory cells, or maybe you've got challenges with your immune system, and if you're around people with viruses and bacteria, you're susceptible to that. You've got damage on your immune system. Maybe you're somebody who has challenges when you eat, and your digestive system has damaged cells that have not been remedied by this signaling mechanism. Then you basically have something that's not functioning so well. So then we have a title, no doubt, if you've ended up with a doctor. But redox signaling actually controls our health. It controls every aspect of our health because they detect when we have a damaged cell. Now, we're all creating damaged cells by simply being alive. That's the process of what happens every day. So to have a net sum zero gain, we would hope that for every damaged cell, there's also a signal that helps it be repaired so that we stay in optimum health. But the challenge is that doesn't happen. And it's because these signaling messengers begin to drop. But they also protect the natural lifespan. So if you have healthy cells, redox is going to protect those healthy cells, live their life. If you have a damaged cell, it's going to signal to come and address a question. Can I repair that damaged cell, or do I need to kill it off and replace it with another one, which is what we understand as healing, right? If we didn't do that, then we'd be in pretty bad shape. And so life itself cannot actually exist without a large amount of redox signaling going on. So you might ask the question, well, why is there a difference in how people function when they're 8 years old as opposed to 80 years old? And it's to do with the number of redox signals that we have, which drop off at 10% per decade from a kind of late teens. And also that what we have becomes less and less efficient as we get older. If you think of your aged grandparents or great-grandparents and they don't hear so well, and you speak to them and maybe they don't have their hearing aid in, good outcome doesn't happen when people don't hear those signaling messages or don't hear that conversation. So by the time we're in our 60s, we really only have about 10% of what we had when we were young. And so you know that difference, right? We all know that those young kids run around, they never get tired, they recover quickly, they don't sleep too much, but they still bounce up the following day. They're not sore and they don't feel the aging signs that people start to notice by the time they're in their 40s, most definitely. But we have another double whammy. Nowadays, in this lifestyle that we have, we're inundated with environmental toxins. And so things like the process of age and the challenges within our diet, the stress that we're all under, actually impact that redox signaling mechanism. And we look at studies that are showing us that pesticides alone are reducing and causing an imbalance in that essential cell signaling communication. Now, what if you could actually say, well, you know what, I started with a full glass of these when I was young, and you may be pulling them away from me as I'm getting older, but what would happen if I could refill that glass? How would I feel in a month's time of rebuilding those signaling molecules, or 3 months, or 6 months, or a year and beyond, if you think that this would be something you could rebuild for the rest of your life? What would be your change in your health? Could you have more energy? Maybe you could sleep an awful lot better, which would impact your health in itself. Maybe you'd have a lot more sharper mental acuity and memory. Those would be important. Well, scientifically, it was considered to be very impossible to hold on to something that is very volatile. So these molecules within our body, rather like a firework, they are made in nanoseconds and they do their thing and they recycle and start again. Well, it's kind of hard to hold on to anything that unstable. And scientifically, everybody said, well, it's impossible to actually stabilize something that in clinical science had been being made since the late 90s when they first discovered these molecules. They had little machines that would generate these molecules, but they lasted no more than about 30 minutes. There's not much you can do with that in a commercial application. So the breakthrough came not in the discovery of redox signaling molecules, not in the being able to make them in little machines, but how did you make them last longer than 30 minutes? And that was the breakthrough. The breakthrough that ASEA took the 10 years of initial research in that and found out how to do the impossible. So they created this whole new category of how we can help ourselves stay healthy and optimize and also address things that our body hasn't been able to do. Now, back in 2009, when they first came to market, they were considered at that point about 10 to 15 years ahead of their time. I actually believe that that's still the case, because to this day, even though they've been around now into their 11th year, they're still the only company that's managed to find out how to break the scientific impossibility of keeping these molecules around. So what they have is a product that lasts now 15 months. Once you get into that, that's the game changer. We can start to do things that you can't just do within 10 to 30 minutes. Now, scientists and experts in these fields of health who are looking at this will actually say that they think this is really one of the biggest breakthroughs for health as a whole, for athletic performance and anti-aging. And how do they do it? Well, they've done exactly what the body does. The body takes the saline, it takes the sodium chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen, and it breaks it up, except that the body can do it in a nanosecond, and it takes the human mind 3.5 days to have worked out how to do the same thing. And so through multiple stages, we recreate exactly the same thing within the cell. And what we have is these stabilized redox signaling molecules. I would say to you that if you're a Googler, you're probably going to see a lot of nonsense about salt water. And when people write that kind of thing, it's because they haven't bothered to do the research and understand the groundbreaking technology that goes behind this. Yes, we start with saline because we have to do what the body does. Otherwise, you can't come up with the same thing. It can't be any different in any shape or form. Literally no inorganic products in there, whatever, because you couldn't end up with a stabilized redox signaling molecule. Now, I want to show you, Lynn mentioned about athletic performance, and although you may not be an athlete, and certainly I'm not an Olympic gold medalist, even though I used to do professional dance, but what I love about this that I think is very significant for the rest of us in our life is the fact that when we have products that Olympic athletes are using, that has a huge stamp of prestige. Because to pass the mouth of an Olympic athlete, there is a bevy of scientists and doctors behind that actually giving approval for that product to get there, because their reputations need to be based on really pure products that don't play around with their metabolism and their biology and get them in trouble with drug testing, for one. And what we see from clinical studies down at the Appalachian Human Performance Research Facility under Dr. David Neiman is an increase in something as much as 29% in endurance, which is huge. Much more endurance, strength, recovery, faster recovery, and mental stamina. Well, you know what? I don't think you need to be an Olympic athlete to say that those can apply to every single one of us, whether we are cradle or whether we're at the other end of our life and we may be in our 80s or 90s. We can all do with strength and recovery and endurance and being mentally alert. So we see people actually doing better in their late 50s and 60s, like Sean Burke, than he actually was performing in his 20s. And I just finished an interview with someone who's a trainer and was also saying at 35 he's already doing things he couldn't do in his 20s. And so we see these amazingly extraordinary performances that can come about from using this product. Now, by 2016, we're actually looking at the fact that the Huffington Post is identifying redox signaling molecules as one of 5 emerging technologies in science that will shape our future as human beings. But they also went one step further and they talked about the ASEA company, because ASEA is the only company who has produced and has stabilized this technology and done this breakthrough. So what does it mean? It means that we have this potential to be able to insert, in other words, to drink healthy redox signaling molecules on a daily basis, which can help us repair and replenish aging cells. Well, I defy anyone to say that you wouldn't like the benefits of that. But let's talk a little bit about clinical studies on this product, for example. We know that from clinical studies, it boosts our antioxidant level, it protects the oxidation of LDL and our DNA. Our DNA is our blueprint of who we are as human beings. And the expression of that blueprint is the genetic signaling. And what we see is that it influenced 5 major areas of health that are enormously important. So let me just take a second to actually look at that study, because there's some significant pieces here that apply to every single one of us that's walking around today, whether we have a health challenge or whether we feel we're healthy and we want to stay that way because we don't have the looking glass below the surface within the body to know what's going wrong, even if we don't yet feel it. They did an 8-week gene signaling study, and their question was, if we give this to healthy 35-year-olds, does it have any impact on how their genes would signal? It was a double-blind placebo-controlled study. They were 35-year-olds who didn't have any health issues, didn't feel like they were already beginning to age, even though they actually were already about 20% down on their redox signaling. And the thing that I noticed, and that is really significant for me, was that it activated the gene pathways of 100% of the people on this product. It had a uniform 20 to 31% improvement in 5 major areas. And those were to improve the immune signaling system, to impact inflammatory response. And so we know that health as a whole lies in these first 2 areas as our most primary and important ways that every single one of us needs to stay healthy if we want to have a long and active life without any disease present. It helped to maintain cardiovascular health and support arterial elasticity. It also improved gut health and digestive enzyme production. That one really caught my attention as a digestive health specialist, and I've seen that play out and be true for every single person that I've used this product with. It also helped to modulate hormone balance and support vitality and wellness, again, something that impacts everyone. And I was so excited when I saw this because I was able to say, wow, it does not matter what somebody brings to the table here, it's in here somewhere. And for many people, that somewhere is all 5 pathways of their dysfunction that they have. I think the other side to point out is that the saline, plain salt water, was used as the placebo, and that in this instance, the body didn't trigger the brain to do anything about changing those markers. There was a 0% shift in the health of those signaling pathways. I want to show you just briefly the EGR1. This is the inflammatory gene signaling pathway, and the reason I want to show this is because those things have just 5 names, but each one opens multiple other doorways. And here we look at 15 pathways that it is going to impact. And so we look at things like serotonin. If you know people who aren't happy, who get into funks, right, and feel miserable a lot of the time, or maybe they cycle up and down, that's the serotonin pathway. We can impact and support them to feel more stable. Circadian rhythm directly impacts how we sleep. Now, every single one of us needs to sleep really well because that's when we restore and regenerate. Human thyroid signaling systems. This is the first time I've been able to literally help people reverse using medication and watch their body go back and regrow hair where it was falling out, or change all sorts of signals, and their doctors are able to say to them that you don't need this anymore. Insulin signaling is well documented and published, as diabetes and redox signaling go together. One is a deficiency of the other, so we can impact and support how the body functions. The NRF2 pathway was actually what I was focusing on in 2011 when I first turned down this information. And what is that? It's how the body generates its own internal antioxidants. This is the most exciting field I found because our body is designed to pump antioxidants out in the millions every single second to counteract inflammation. Inflammation is the cause of every disease, and every disease creates inflammation. That was a major marker. And in a different study on ASEA shows that we actually regulate that key antioxidant of glutathione, and that goes up by 800%. That's a major factor. In fact, we know about 82 diseases are directly connected to a lack of glutathione. So if you could increase your glutathione, and that was the only thing that you got from ASEA, it would be worth every penny. Um, I want to just say that the one thing that ASEA is not is it's not nutrition. There's no nutritional value in redox signaling whatsoever. You get that from your food or from your supplements. However, it is a partnership because the nutrition and the supplements that we may take and the food that we consume are the materials to build the building blocks of our cells. And like a house, if we have materials but we don't have the laborers turn up to actually take those materials, we can't build the house. So redox primes the cell to prepare and ready it to absorb and consume the nutrition in an effective way and build really healthy cells. And it also makes sure that the outcome is accurate. Let's take just a second to look at the development that took them 5 years, taking the liquid supplement that we have here and actually finding a way to stabilize it so that we could apply it to the skin, and it was suspended. And you're seeing there the 4-week studies on the Renew 28, some amazing impacts in just 28 days. Skin cell reversal and, you know, turning over those skin cells 16% faster in 28 days is amazing. By the time you're about 50, those skin cells are taking 90 days to turn over instead of what was 28 when they were younger. So that in itself, who wouldn't want to look 16% younger in 28 days? And so those of us who use it over the long term see lots of benefits from that. What we have here was then a 12-week study on the actual complete skincare line that was created to complement and not to detract from the benefit of the redox within the Renew 28. Photo damage is an amazingly important thing. We're moving into the summer. Everybody who's out in the sun is going to get photo damage. This is a great product to support and protect your skin from all sorts of things. But I want to talk about for a second the thing and the use of this that caught my attention. And when I first looked at this in 2016 and seriously looked at it, I paid attention to what Dr. David Silverman would talk about in how to use this for things that hurt. And he would say, rate a level of discomfort. So let's suppose you have, you know, stiff shoulders, a stiff neck. I mean, many of us have that nowadays because we're sitting on Zooms all the time. You know, stiff back from sitting down, stiff knees from not getting up and walking around like we used to. But whatever is uncomfortable, just rate that level of discomfort. 0 would be nothing, 10 would be really severe, you know, taking you to the hospital. Rate that level of discomfort, and then the gel is like the liquid, except it has something to stabilize it, which is a clay, so just give it a shake. And then what I want you to do is to apply the gel to wherever it hurts 3 times in 5 minutes. You'll see that if I show you here on the screen, you'll see it's perfectly clear. And it actually is a signaling mechanism. Although it will be absorbed, you actually don't need to rub it in. The moment it contacts the skin, it's already signaling and communicating. It's helping those cells get back to doing something that they've forgotten how to do. And then wait for 5 minutes after you've done that and take a look and re-rate that level of discomfort. I played around with this as I got this for my first time. I took it into the office, and every time someone came in who had something that hurt, I would say, can you give me some feedback on this? I want to try out this new product. I wanted somebody else to help me build a belief in how this product worked because I wasn't using it. And that might surprise you, all right? But I will tell you that, you know, your doctor, an oncologist, doesn't use oncology in order to recommend it. And as a nutritionist and in that field, I'm not going to use every product to know the benefits of it, but I am going to recommend it from the science. And I was just amazed because Dr. Silverman would say, try it on 10 people and watch what happens to kind of 9 of them. But I found that actually all of them actually had a benefit that shifted. Sometimes those shifts were going from a level 8 down to a 0 in under 5 minutes, which just blew me out of the water because I was never come across something that would change a discomfort level, not from an analgesic. Understand, this is not about analgesics. This is actually changing the way your cells communicate. And it didn't matter whether it was a hip problem, whether it's sinus challenges, whether it was severe headache, whether it was a broken toe with bruising. It just impacted everything. So I knew that there was a huge benefit for people in a really quick way. And so I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to use that, to go ahead and ask the person who's invited you here that you can have your test at that. I want to just show you briefly some of the examples of the benefits of the clinical study of 28 days. What we see is those changes in skin tone and texture, wrinkles, hydration. We internally hydrate the skin cells. Ask you to start my video.
We just see a picture. We don't see you anymore.
Oh, that's weird. Let me just try this. Hang on a second. I'm going to go back and share my screen again and see if I can get to that.
It's almost like one of your screens is showing and one is not.
Can you see that now?
No, I'm going to do something else real quick, Carolyn. You keep going. I'm going to try to find a second.
I'm going to go to another screen here, which might be the one. What about that one? No? Oh, that's weird. All right, I'm just going to shut that for a second. So what we see is, while I'll try and work this out while we chat, what we see is lots of benefits for the skin that make huge changes. I think I might be able to do this and start this one again so that we can pull this up. That was odd. And I think, no, that's not gonna, oh, there we go. Hang on a second. Can you see it now?
This is so.
Can you see that now?
I am not seeing you.
You're not seeing me at all?
I see a picture of David and Debbie.
Oh, that's weird. Hang on a second. Let's see if we can change that. There we go.
There you are.
There we go. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. I think I must have clicked it by accident. So these are examples of the 28-day study, and we see things like the changes in the texture of the skin and tightening, wrinkles, hydration, and Dr. Marty Marin's decision to actually put the Renew on just one half of his face and do his own version of the Renew 28 study. So as I said, try this out 3 times in 5 minutes for anything that is uncomfortable for you and work out what is the outcome. Complete cellular health comes from really using all of the products that have been designed to be synergistic with the redox, which goes to feeding the cells with redox compatible nutrition. I'm not going to go into those, but they are a separate topic. You can certainly, as somebody who's brought you to the call this evening, can definitely share that information with you. And then the complete skincare line that supports the 3 redox products. So the redox based products are the drink, the primer for the skin, and then the intensive redox product, which is the rejuvenate, which tends to be for fine lines and wrinkles, but we can use it for all sorts. So still to this day, the one thing I want to emphasize is that this is the world's first and only cell signaling supplement. I actually don't think of it as a supplement because it's replenishing. It's replenishing and rebuilding, and that is very different from supplementing. We don't produce blueberries within our body, but we might use the benefits of them by consuming them. But replenishing is rebuilding something that your body is naturally making, such as stem cells, for example. People go for stem cell therapy, but here we're able to actually rebuild this essential cell signaling molecule on a daily basis. And so how would you consider using this? I like to think of the baseline of 4 ounces a day of dealing with the damage of living today. And if you have a challenge or you have age on your side, I would suggest that you're going to need to think of more than simply a baseline to deal with today's damage if you want to go back and reset the body to help your body address something that it didn't manage to complete. And that is really what sickness and injury and anything that we've taken with us over the years and has a title to it, that is just damaged cells that the body hasn't addressed. And what we do is we bring in this renovation crew and say, here's a challenge in this area, please go back and focus on that and help me achieve a better state of health. And as we move away from this chronic illness that a lot of us live in because of constant inflammation. Obviously, when we're really seriously ill, our batteries are having a real challenge in charging up and getting the fuel that they need to do repair. So it's play around with it to see what is going to happen for you, but understand that your personal journey will be different from everybody else's. You can look at what people's experiences are from all of the references that we have in what people show us, but understand that the person who's invited you is going to be the best resource to be able to direct you to the information and tailor and support you in your redox journey. And I always love to finish with our famous Rosie, because Rosie started on the right. Her son is a doctor, he was using it, and she decided to start using it. But Rosie came about 7 weeks later on that second picture and said, I don't think this is working. Well, anyone who's taken a photo and compares it, which fortunately her son had done, was able to show her that not only had a lot of that inflammation that we can see in this first phase begun to change, but there was a life coming back into this lady. And you know, health is about life, about vibrance from within. It's not just on the outside. But I will remind us all soberly that if we're wrinkling on the outside, we're wrinkling on the inside. And here we are as she progresses in that third photo, and she progresses again in the fourth photo. I haven't put the ages up here because I asked somebody today to guess what the age was, and she suggested she thought she was in her mid-80s at this point. But even though she couldn't guess what she was here, she said she looks about 20 years younger. And I said yes, because what we're doing is interrupting the breakdown of aging. And so I say always that, you know, I have no other product that I've ever come across in 20 odd years in this field that is able to literally reverse the aging. This is not anti-aging, it is reverse aging, because I defy anyone to tell me that we can truly expect in our 90s to look a lot younger than we did in our earlier 80s. And so I'm going to pass it back to you, Lynn. Apologies for the disruption there, as I want you to continue to share your experiences with this company from the other side. What drew you into it? Because I know it started with the product, but like for both of us, it kind of morphed into a different place.
It absolutely did. Thank you again for that brilliant explanation. I did, you know, I initially looked at this. Many of you who are on here know my daughter had a very serious health challenge, and I had been looking for something that could help her. And this happened to be that missing link that you referred to earlier in your presentation. But as I started to see, you know, not only her health come back, but little subtle things in my own and in my husband's, and we're feeling decades younger, I started to learn more about this company. I started to go to some events that were being held in my area, started to learn not only about the technology, but really start to get in kind of an inside look at what this company was all about. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of this, there's just so many facets and so much depth to this company. And one of the things that really, really drew me in was the culture of this company and the kind of people that were attracted to this company that are bringing this to the world. I had the opportunity, as I know you did, to go to a meeting where I met the corporate staff. I got to meet just dozens and dozens and dozens of people who had been working with this for way longer than I had. And the one thing that really struck me was the passion that all these people had for changing other people's lives in a profound way. There was nobody talking about money that they were making. There was nobody talking about material things. It was, you know, a little bit about the science, but then sharing these stories that were just remarkable. And then the founder got up and he started to talk about the ethos or the culture of the company. And, you know, I was hooked because he started to talk about this company being something called a P over an E company, which I hadn't heard that term before. Basically, it's a company where they're putting people, purpose, and principles before ego and economics. And I've watched that play out in the 7+ years that I've been with this company. You know, it is all about people. It's all about how can they change lives in a positive way? How can they have an impact worldwide? Their mission statement is to better people's lives and be a force for good in the world. And they literally, they breathe and eat and live that purpose, as do I think the people who have linked arms and joined them in that. So that really spoke to me because I've spent decades in the wellness industry because I also have a passion for helping others. And in things that I've done before, you know, I was able to help the people in front of me, but not have a huge influence way beyond myself. And the fact that they chose this model to bring it to the world has allowed me to just touch hundreds and hundreds of lives, people who I may never meet. And yet I get to see that, this is making their lives better. The company has a part of their ethos that I really like, and it's a great tagline. And there's a lot in marketing with taglines, as you and I both know, but when a company actually lives it, I think that's very, very meaningful. And this is something, it's called Believe, Belong, and Become. You mentioned about building your belief in the product by using that gel on people. And I think one of the things beyond just believing in the product and the company is so many of us need to have a belief in ourselves, that we are here to do something and that we are incredible beings. And this company, because of their promotion of self-improvement and self-transformation, there's so many things that we're doing that transform us as human beings, that there's a lot of that belief that comes in there. And then you belong to this incredible community of like-minded souls. So you actually can become anything you want to become, whether it's becoming, a better spouse, a better parent, a better sister, a better brother, a better business leader, whatever it is. These are parts of the ethos and the culture that you just don't see in other companies, not to mention they've got this incredible discovery that everyone on the planet can benefit from. But then when you couple that with just this heartfelt desire to do good in the world and attracting people of like mind, that is one of the things that has kept me here for 7 years. And for those of you who maybe you're looking for a purpose or a way that you can have an impact, you can absolutely do that with the discovery, with these redox molecules. But the company also has a humanitarian arm called the Advancing Life Foundation. And they're very, very committed to changing lives in other ways as well. They've built schools in Ecuador. They have done things for clean water in Cambodia. They work with organizations that are trying to stop sex trafficking with children and minors. So there's lots of ways that you can have a huge impact beyond yourself if you wanted to link arms with this company. And then as far as the business, because I know I mentioned that, and that's our last little bit of why people might be on here tonight, I would suggest, I'll go into it just a little bit, but tomorrow night, Dr. David Silverman, who Carolyn mentioned, it's interesting. David is a fascinating person. He wears two hats. He is on the medical professional board for this company because of his background, right, in medicine, but he was also the business builder of the year last year. He saw how profound this was and how he could bring this to the world and change people's lives on a massive scale. And so tomorrow night, he will actually be doing a Zoom with my daughter, Danielle, talking about the business, really delving into, how to make this possible for yourself, whatever your dream is, small or big. They're going to be really getting into the details and giving a much bigger vision. But for purposes of tonight, just very briefly, I have to say this is the most impactful and the most fun business I've ever done. I've been an entrepreneur for, 30 years. And this is something that it's very inexpensive to get involved in it. It's a very simple thing you do. You just have to be committed, and it's whatever time you want to put into it. But it is something that can really change your life and your family's lives. Some people do this part-time. They just want to maybe cover groceries for the month. Some people want to cover a car payment, and still others want to leave a legacy for their kids. And what I love about this company and this model is that it meets you where you are. And if your dreams change and grow to something bigger, it will grow with you. And I think that is really something that, especially now, after this past year, when so many people's lives were turned upside down financially, there's so many people looking for something that they can fit into a busy schedule, something they maybe can do from home so they can have more time freedom with their kids. And for me, it just checked so many of the boxes that it has been just a true privilege and an honor to link arms with this company. And it has been a lot of fun. We're very serious about what we do, but we have a lot of fun doing it. and we meet people around the world who would never have come into our lives otherwise, like Dr. Hoffman. You know, I don't know that I would have ever met you. You're in Charlottesville, I'm in Arizona, and the friendship that you develop with people that you would have never met really is part of why I love doing this. So I know that you, Carolyn, have a similar story with an event that you went to. So I would love for you to share that. And then I know we've got some questions going on in the chat, and then we'll turn our attention to the questions.
Absolutely. I was thinking as you mentioned that, you know, I think our entree into do we do more with it than simply use it ourselves was the same. You know, my experience with, okay, do I want to put time into this beyond sharing it with the person face to face in my clinic? Was an investigation event, and we went to an event, I guess, fairly similar, and came away with the same kind of mind-blowing experience that this was everything that people don't think of about this kind of direct marketing, network marketing basis. You know, people who really lived the ethos that you mentioned and made me feel like we'd spent a day in personal development, not remotely anything to do with a business. And I actually don't really like the word business. I think it's important to think of, you know, we build an ASEA organization around the world, and I think, you know, I resonated with what you said, that it's been so much more rewarding for me to be able to impact far more people than I could ever do face to face in my practice. And it's been so much more rewarding personally in terms of the way it's stretched me as a human being, not just as a practitioner, to develop and grow in ways that I certainly would not have been part of running a functional medicine clinic, and way a lot more fun. A lot more fun, flat out. So I would agree with that entirely. That, you know, someone said to me the other day, well, you know, I joined ASEA, but I didn't join ASEA because I'm interested in the money. You know, I wanted the product, and I wanted to help my friends and family who are hurting. And I said, you know, it's one and the same thing, because if you love and care about people, and you've got the possibility of hope for them, you're going to share this information with them because you love and you care about them and you want them to feel better. You know, if they end up investigating the information and deciding that it's a good choice for them and they choose to use the products, you know, you're going to earn money. Did you do it for the money? No, you didn't. You did it for the motivation of wanting to help somebody. I said, but, you know, as we often say, there's the impact that we have financially in our lives, and what we can do with that for other people, again, is only a direct relationship to the number of people that we help around the world. So the more motivated you are to help people, the byproduct of that is you get a check. You know, it's kind of an interesting, it's the only side effect to this product, right? Is that you get money if you help people. So I just want to address a couple of things that I didn't talk about as we go through. So some people kind of get a little bit wigged out when they hear salt and water, and the questions are, well, I'm on a sodium restricted diet, so, you know, how does that affect me? There's very, very little sodium left in this. By the time it goes through its process, an extremely small amount of sodium left in there. It's actually the equivalent of about ½ carrot of sodium per day. And so if you're on a sodium restricted diet, no doctor is going to tell you that you can't eat ½ carrot or a slice of bread. So it's safe, and that's the one thing that's really important to know, that there's, in clinical studies, there's no toxicity to this. You can drink a bottle a day without a problem, not that you would need to unless you were seriously ill. You can't be allergic to it because, as Lynn mentioned, you know, this is something that's within every single cell of our body. Our pets and our plants likewise love and do very well with this product, if you feel like blessing their lives. Because it's in us innately, so we can't be allergic to something that's within us and that we're manufacturing already. And there's no drug interaction, which is pretty unique, because, you know, you can recommend, and there are great benefits to herbs, but herbs have a lot of interactions with drugs, so you do need to understand how that can impact someone. And so can it help or can it hurt? It can't hurt in any shape or form and can only help. Now, if you read the label, which is very typical of what we do, you will see sodium chloride and water, and understand that that's like the ingredients for baking a cake. It's what we start with, it gets transformed, and it becomes redox signaling molecules. How do we know that? Because on the back of the label, is something called the STAMP. This is the third-party validation from Bioagilytics. This is a company down in North Carolina who ordinarily does not batch test and verify for nutritional companies what their product is, because that's normally what they do for drug manufacturing companies on behalf of the FDA. Why do they do it for a drug? Because a drug has the potential to kill you, for you to have allergic reactions to it or something serious, and so they have to guarantee how those drugs are manufactured. In the nutritional arena, that is not necessary because they're not drugs. And companies who do additional testing will go above and beyond to manufacture to these amazingly high standards. And so ASEA sends everything out, it's all batch tested, and it's stamped and verified that we have redox signaling molecules in there, so you know what you're buying. Also make sure that you buy it through the company, through the person that's with you on this call this evening, because you're going to get it from that FDA approved facility in Salt Lake City, the only place in the world that makes this, because we have about 32 patents on it, and it's unique and it's special and it's highly protected. Also, that company is going to give you a 30-day money-back guarantee. You could drink all that product that you use and they wouldn't even ask for it back. You can, if you found for some reason that you wanted your money back, they will give it back to you. We have agreements that it should not be sold online outside of the company. Unfortunately, some people still do things to get it out there, and just understand that the company checks that kind of product. Amazon sends people letters to say get rid of it if it happens to end up on Amazon, because we have lots of experiences where it's actually tampered with product, it's not the real product, it's expired, it hasn't been looked after, and you also have no 30-day money-back guarantee. But what I think is more important, you have no loyalty points for being a loyal customer, which means you get additional free product for purchasing it through ASEA, but you also don't have the expertise and support of the person that's bringing you to this call tonight. They're the ones that are going to know, and they're going to have resources to other people that know how to tweak this. This is an art and a science, it's not cookie cutter, and we're all unique and our experiences will be different, and to get the optimum benefit for the outcome, it's really good to be guided by someone who's gone before you. And so I would encourage you to make sure that you don't do that. I'm just going to stop the recording and I'm going to answer those questions that we have here. Let's see if we can just stop this.